Welcome, everybody, to another wonderful session. This is part 3 of lesson 17, and it's titled Automation with Python. In this lesson, we are learning how to use Python to automate repetitive tasks. As Python developers, it is very important that we expand our knowledge in Python. Today, Python is so important, Python is so popular, and Python is used in all of our tech industries. And so we have to get used to Python. We have to explore Python some more. We have to practice using Python in different ways. And the more you get familiar with it, the more you understand. From experience, I've realized that you don't fully understand Python in one day, but the more you spend time working on Python projects, working on Python tasks, the more you spend time learning, that is what helps you to get used to it. And before you know it, you are able to write Python code really well and master it. We need to master Python for our careers. It's not a joke at all. We need to master Python for cybersecurity. We need to master Python for data science, AI, machine learning, data analytics. We need to master Python for cloud and everything. And we are not joking with it at all. Let's get used to it. Let's explore various ways of using Python. And in the next coming weeks, we are going to go back into the middle of Python to explore certain areas that we didn't cover in our previous exploration of Python. We need to go back to string manipulation to understand it really well. We need to go back to loops to understand it really well. And most importantly, we need to go back to functions and understand how to write functions very well. What I want is that everyone here can confidently create functions, use functions, understand functions really well. And we need to build our confidence and our mastery in Python. And we will explore Python till we are familiar with object-oriented programming in Python. So let's always run towards Python lessons and Python classes, and let's explore Python, because the more we do that, the more we understand, and we want to really understand. We want to be good with Python. So excellence or perfection is not a destination. It is a continuous journey that never ends. Yes, and you need to always move with that in mind. Always move with the idea of doing your best, of being excellent, of being perfect. Being perfect. Once you have that determination, even if you don't achieve perfection, you will achieve tremendous results. Okay? Yeah, someone said, shoot for the moon. And even if you don't reach the moon, you land among the stars. That is very powerful. It means aim so high that even if you don't get there, where you will get to, no one else has gotten there before. Yeah, so let's aim for excellence. Let's aim for perfection. And it's a continuous process. Every day, we need to have that motivation. Every day, we need to work hard. Every day, we need to learn hard. Yeah, so let's keep doing this. Let's keep doing this till we are all experts in Python. All right. And of course, that is me. And today we are talking about automation with Python part 3. And automation, just like I said previously, and we've always read in class, refers to the use of scripts, programs, or tools to perform repetitive tasks automatically with minimal or no human intervention. Yes, automation is so powerful. It is the tool for success. If you are not able to automate certain things, what it means is that you will always be needed to do that work. And life shouldn't be that way, that you should always be needed to do it. Once it is automated, it means it can be done without you being there. Yes. And how long would you be there and for how many years? All right. So there are some years you are around, but everything you are doing, you need to design it in a way that it can be automated. And when you are not around, it can still function without you. That is automation. Automation has been the cornerstone of advancement and progress in technology. And when it comes to coding, we need to understand how to reuse code, how to automate a lot of things. And when it comes to Python programming, we are able to use Python to automate a lot of repetitive tasks. So that is what we are exploring. Last week, we used Python to automate schedules. And because Python has extensive libraries, we are able to do a lot of automation with Python. And what is important right now is for us to study and practice learn these skills because we are going to be needing them. So for a short recap, we started automation with the OS module, And if you missed this particular lesson, you can get access to it upon request, or for those who have received it, we shared it with you. Yes, and for us to continue, I'm just going to ask one question which I asked last week. This OS module, what does it do? What does it do in Python? What is it used for? What is it used for? The OS module, what is it used for? So anybody, you can tell me in the chat, what is the OS module used for? You see, the more you get close to Python, the more you understand it, all right? And your understanding will come in layers, So layers upon layers. And now you are being introduced to the OS module. Next time, you can easily use it. Yes, someone says it interacts with the operating system. It interacts with the operating system. So the OS module is very powerful. It is a module in Python that is built in, and it is used to interact with the operating system. What this means is that anytime you want to write Python code to do something on the computer, you can import this module to do that. All right. And it can perform system level operations such as creating files and directories. It can rename, it can move, it can delete files and directories. So anything you want to do to your file system, the file management, this is a module to work with. And when it's time to build important projects in Python, you are going to be using the OS module. So this is a good opportunity to get introduced to the OS module. We also talked about the schedule, and the schedule, an incredible library. One thing about the OS, you don't have to install it because it is part of Python's standard library. So you don't have to install it. It is a built-in module, so you can just import it and use it. For this schedule, we learned last week that it can run tasks at specific time, such as every minute, every hour, every day, every Monday, every Tuesday, every 3 days, every 4 days, every month. So it's a very powerful library for automating tasks. You just have to state when the task should be executed. So once Python is running on your computer system, when the time is up, this particular library will activate the code and perform the task that you are looking for. So we tried a simple code snippet last week. and we were able to print a message after some time. So over here, you can see that every 10 seconds, it should do something. So if you miss this particular lesson too, you can request for it and it will be given to you. But for most of you, you already have it. This is really, really powerful. You can combine it with a time module and combine it with other libraries to do a whole lot. You can combine the OS, you can combine the schedule, and what we are going to be looking at tonight, you can combine all of them to create very, very impressive programs in Python. The reason we are doing this is because we have advanced Python lessons upcoming, and so we need to be able to explore Python to an extent. And my hope is that all of you here are following what we are learning and you are able to practice and do your assignments with them. All right. Still talking about task automation, we are going to explore one particular library today called SMTP-lib. We are used to the OS library. We are used to the request library. We are used to schedule. We are going to talk about SMTP-lib today. And later on, you can explore OpenPixel or OpenPyXL to automate tasks with Excel files. In the data analysis class, we are going to definitely use OpenPixel or OpenPyXL for automation in data analysis, but then you can explore it some more. We want you to be able to see things and explore them. We want you to try new things. We want you to expand your knowledge. So I want you to type SMTP LIB in the chat for me if you can hear me. SMTP lib, let me see that in the chat. SMTP lib, thank you, Ato. Thank you, Francis. Yes. And if you look at this particular library, it is used for SMTP. And I like Python libraries so much because once you are studying Python and you get to the level where you understand libraries, it means you can use Python for almost anything. You just need to have the right library and you can do incredible things. Yes. So this particular SMTP lib, what it does is to help you to automate email sending. So the project will be starting in this lesson will be to automate email sending. And after we build a foundation, you'll be asked to upgrade upon it. So what we'll be achieving by the end of this lesson is to create a list of recipients and ask our Python script to send an email to each one of them. At the end of the lesson, what I want you to do is to upgrade upon it, add names and email, and ask the Python script to inject the name into the message, and it should send it to the email with a name injected within it. So instead of saying hello world to everybody, you can say hello Sylvia or hello Robley or hello Dorcas. So you can personalize the email. So that is what we want you to do. And we also want you to include the schedule for the email to be sent at a specific day and time. So at the end of this lesson, this will be the assignment for you to take this particular lesson to the next level. And someone will ask why we should automate email sending. Why can't you use an email client like Outlook to send your emails? Why do you need a script like Python script to send your email? And there are a lot of reasons. There are a lot of reasons. For example, I use email scripts all the time because let's say you go to Rita Africa, you fill a form and you get an email immediately you are done filling the form. You get an email instantly after filling the form. That particular email, there is no human waiting for you to fill the form and to send you an email saying, thank you for registering, or congratulations, or this is the next step. There's no human waiting for that. And at the same time, multiple people are filling the same form. So this is a good reason for you to know how to automate email sending, because a time will come you'll be using Python as a backend program for your application, and you need to be able to automate email sending to your those who interact with your application. So one reason that I can give you now is that it saves time and a lot of effort, even with all the features in our email client. If there are multiple mails to be sent, a script can do it way faster. So it will definitely save time and effort. Number two, it can help you personalize at scale. All right. Most of the bulk email services, what you can do is to, for example, if you are using your normal email client, unless you are using an email marketing service, for that, there are features for you to do personalizations and all that. But apart from that, your normal Google and Yahoo and Outlook, when you are sending emails, it is hard to personalize. If you are sending bulk emails, all right, you can say hello, everyone, or hello, students. But for you to say hello, Michael, and the same message will tend to hello, Dorcas, and hello, Robly, that is a little difficult. In Microsoft Word, we have something called mail merge, and it's supposed to do that. But mail merge, I think it is quite complicated to use mail merge. But with a script like Python, you can easily create a list with a name and the email. You can use a dictionary as well with the name and the email, and you can fetch the name, fetch the email, put it in the script as a variable, and it can pick them one by one and send to multiple people in a very, very personalized way. Not just name, not just email. It can personalize the content and personalize so much more. So automating emails, that's a whole lot. Also, you can schedule and trigger the sending at a specific day and time. I know Outlook can do this, but this is more powerful and can do it repetitively. All right. This can be done repetitively. With Outlook, you can set it for it to send an email at so and so time, but it may not be able to do it repetitively as it should. And just like I told you, you can give instant feedback to forms and automated responses on your application. So there are a lot of benefits to knowing how to send email. Yes, our job here is not really about email, but it's about automation and about Python. And the subject for tonight is using Python to send email. And for that to happen, we need to have some understanding of how emails work. If you've taken the Webmaster course, then you have better understanding of email service and how emails work. Yeah, so with that understanding, you will be able to use this particular library to send mails. But if you don't have that understanding, it is quite difficult because you need to configure a server in your Python script and let it do the email sending. All right. If you use other programming languages, there are libraries that help you to connect to your server and send a lot of mails. But Python does it in a very, very special way. And you need to understand the basics of email. So I'm going to take some few minutes to talk about email servers just for some few minutes. And after that, we will get onto PyCharm and start writing the code to send the emails. Okay. Are you ready for the next step? Are you ready for the next step? All right. So everything I've said so far is just to introduce the concept of sending mails and using Python to send emails. So I'm going to talk about email service, and we understand that we have email addresses. And for example, what you see on your screen, we have owusu@yahoo.com. You need to understand that the owusu is the user ID, and the yahoo.com represents the server's address. The yahoo.com is a domain name which is masking the IP address of a server. So for emails to work, there are a lot of technologies behind them. There is always server to server communication when it comes to sending emails. Anytime you send an email, you are talking to a server or two servers are talking. Okay. Again, when you take our webmaster course, you understand this much, much better. I don't know why I'm using Ghanaian names, but we have na@gmail.com. The gmail.com, what is it? I already told you. What do you think the gmail.com represents? What do you think the gmail.com represents? Who can tell me what the gmail.com represents? Okay. Okay. So the gmail.com represents the domain name masking the IP address, or it represents the server responsible for the email. So over here, it means you are going to interact with a domain name pointing to an IP, and the IP is IP of what? Is the IP of a physical server that will be responsible for sending the email. All right. You know that IPs represents computers. They represent machines. They represent compute. All right. So there's a specific machine that the IP is pointing to, and that IP is what is sending the email. All right. In the past, we have always seen Yahoo and Gmail, and for non-tech people, they only think about Yahoo and Gmail when they think about emails, and they always get emails for free, so that is all they think about. But for us, tech people, and those who have training in web service and cloud, we understand the tech behind it. We understand that the emails are being sent by servers. All right. And emails are not only at Yahoo and at Gmail. Companies can customize their own emails. For example, we have customer care at mtn.com. This is not at yahoo.com. So how is it that MTN can also have their own email? It follows the same principle that Yahoo and Gmail follow to send and create emails. Because MTN also has a web server, and because they have a web server, the web server provides email services, and so they have an email server. And so if you have an email server, you can create email address, and your server will be the email server to communicate with any server. And so anyone who owns a website can create their own email at their domain.com. The only difference between Yahoo and Gmail is that those ones are just popular. A lot of people are using it. As a matter of fact, you can have your own server, have your own domain name, and also start providing emails for free. If your service becomes popular, you are just like Yahoo and just like email. This is something that any of us can do because we are trained in it. Any of us can do this. In just a minute, you can set up a server, set up an email, and it will work. But what is the tech behind it? How does it really, really work? We have to understand that once you create a domain name and you point it to a server, that server becomes an email server. Let me just put it that way. And that email server has a mail sending capability and a mail receiving capability. And so Every web hosting server that you host your website on also functions as an email server. The same time, that same web hosting server also functions as a database server. If your compute infrastructure is supposed to be large or your website is having a lot of load, then what you can do is to have dedicated servers for the file server or the files, and have a dedicated server for the database server or the databases, and also have a dedicated server for the email server or the emails. But most of the time, the same web hosting server you have functions as a file server, database server, and an email server. Next, we are going to zoom into the email function of your server. And again, anyone who has a website has the ability to send emails. Now, to talk about the email server, I'm just giving a very quick overview of what we've done already. Most of you have heard this lecture before, but I'm just giving you a quick overview. And we'll connect this same thing to the Python library SMTP-lib to be able to send emails. Again, talking about the email server has two functions. What the email server does is to send and receive. Send and what? Receive. Someone should type send and receive. Send and receive. Someone should put that in the chat for me. Send and receive. So if you have an email server, that is what it does. That is what it does. Again, my question is, what is the tech behind it? We know that anytime you use a mobile device or a laptop to access the web, you are actually making an HTTP request to a file server or a web server. So once your request goes to the server, it goes through a protocol called HTTP. So HTTP is what sends your request for YouTube to the YouTube server, and the server will respond with the HTML to give you the page you are looking for. In the world of emails, things are a little bit different. When it comes to emails, the email server has two functions: sending and receiving. Those are the functions of the email server. And these functions are designed to operate as their own servers. And so we have what we call the outgoing server and what we call the incoming server. Again, your email server has two functions. One function is called the outgoing server, and another function is called the incoming server. Or one function is for sending and another function is for receiving. The function for sending is what we refer to as the outgoing server. Please type outgoing server in the chat for me if you can hear me. That is a function of your server for sending emails. Once we understand the tech behind emails, it becomes very, very easy. Then who can tell me the function for receiving emails? Because your server needs to receive emails. What's the function for receiving emails? We call it what? Who can tell me in the chats? Very, very simple. It's called the incoming server. All right. So if you take the subject of email servers, you are always going to be hearing outgoing server, incoming server. That's what you are going to be hearing. Good. And we understand that it means sending and receiving. Number two, each of these functions work with different protocols. The same way when you make a request to a file server, you will request through HTTP or HTTPS. When it comes to emails, we request through different protocols. So there are three protocols in the world of emails. When it comes to emails, there are three protocols. One of them is called SMTP. Please type SMTP in the chat for me. So you've heard of HTTP. HTTP operates through web browsers, to make a request to a server, but SMTP works with what we call the outgoing server. Outgoing server. And I'm going to ask those who have taken this lesson to quickly tell me from memory what SMTP stands for. SMTP. Let me see the first person who will tell me without checking on ChatGPT right now. I'm watching your computer. If you are checking ChatGPT, I'm going to know. So who can tell me? It's called Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. All right. Okay. So you see this SMTP, it is the tech behind how email moves from a server. Okay. So let's look at this picture here. You can see Bob trying to send an email to Alice. You see? Now, in the mind of Bob, Bob thinks that his computer is what is sending the email to Alice's computer, but emails do not work that way. When Bob uses his computer to send an email, first, his server will receive the information from his computer, and it is his server that will try to send the email. It is his server, please listen to this part. It is his server that will send the email, not his computer. Now, his server has two functions. One is called the outgoing server and one is called the incoming server. The outgoing server is a part of the email server that sends the email using a protocol we call SMTP, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. Now, this is how the email is sent. The email from Bob moves from his server and it doesn't go to Alice's computer. No, emails don't function that way. Who can tell me where the email will be stored? The email will not be stored on Alice's computer at first. The job of this server using the SMTP protocol will send the email, but not to Alice's computer. Where would the email be sent to? Okay, someone said it will be sent to her email server. Okay, so think about it this way. Whenever you send an email, what is actually happening is what we call server-to-server communication. The email doesn't really consider, or the server doesn't really consider your device to receive the email. What it is interested in is to finding out which server will or should receive the message, and it will send a message to that server. All right, so the outgoing server using SMTP, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, will move the mail from the server of Bob to the server of Alice. So how will the server of Bob know that it should send to this particular server? Because there are millions of servers. It will look at the email address. If the email ends at yahoo.com, then Bob's server knows that it needs to find a Yahoo server because there are data packets within the SMTP, as in the recipient IP address. It can go onto the web and locate the specific server that it should drop the message on. And because it says Alice at, once the server receives it, the server knows how to organize it and store it only for Alice. The whole point of what I'm saying is that the email is moved from one server to another server. Whether Alice will check her mail or not, the email is stored on her server. And when it's time for Alice to check her mail, there are two different protocols that handles the email retrieval. And so if you study about email servers, you will learn that there is email sending protocol called SMTP, and there are two email retrieval protocols. What are the two email retrieval protocols? Who can tell me in the chat? Those who remember this lesson, what are the two email retrieval protocols? The two email retrieval protocols, who can tell me what they are? Okay, we have POP3 and IMAP. So anyone who has taken a lesson in email service understands very well what SMTP is and what POP3 and IMAP stands for. This POP3 and IMAP, they are two protocols that you can choose out of them which one you want to use. They are the protocols for the incoming server. How does the incoming server work? The incoming server, its job is simple: to move mails from your server to your device. So if you are using a phone, your phone needs to connect to your own server to retrieve any emails you may have. It's like having WhatsApp messages. When your data is off, the message is kept on your server. You may not know that there's a server behind or there's compute behind WhatsApp, but there's a lot of compute behind WhatsApp. Your email goes to the WhatsApp server, waiting for you to request for them, or your messages go to the WhatsApp server, waiting for you to request for them. The moment you turn on your data, you've made a request, and so the incoming server will use either POP3 or IMAP to move the message from your WhatsApp server to your device, and now you can read them. So anytime you open to Outlook, you have configured within your Outlook whether you want to use POP3 or IMAP to retrieve your mails. So these two are email retrieval protocols, but SMTP is an email sending protocol. So in the whole wide world, anytime an email needs to be sent, it is sent by one guy. That guy is called SMTP. It is a protocol for sending mails. So anytime you are writing a script anywhere, that the script should send an email to a server, that script is going to rely on SMTP to send your mail. This is a tech behind emails and how emails are sent. If you have an email server, you can create unlimited emails. You can choose to give everybody an email address, if only you can manage the compute load. So the incoming server uses POP3 or IMAP, and my next question is for someone to tell me what POP3 stands for and another person to tell me what IMAP stands for. So this is just a quick intro I'm giving you, and then we'll move on to, okay, I knew Bernardine would type it. So POP3 stands for Post Office Protocol version 3, and IMAP stands for what? Who can tell me what IMAP stands for? All right. So my point here is that anyone who has taken a lesson in emails and email servers, you understand these three protocols. SMTP for sending the mail from your server, and then POP3 and Internet Message Access Protocol, or IMAP, is used to retrieve the email. Yes, if you want to understand this better, in our webmaster course, you understand it so well, and it is a very, very valuable skill to have. All right. So all of these email services, Microsoft Outlook, they all rely on these protocols to retrieve and to send. And anywhere emails are sent, whether through Google Workspace, they all rely on these protocols. Whether Microsoft 365, they all rely on these protocols to send and receive emails. So this is where I'm going to stop talking about these protocols. The last thing I will say is that anytime you want to make use of any of these protocols, you need to configure them to an email client to be able to use them. For example, this particular SMTP, if you want to use Outlook to send emails, your Outlook needs to be configured to a server. If your Outlook is not configured to a server, what it means is that your Outlook cannot send emails. But once you have that configuration, your Outlook can send emails. All right. The next thing I'm going to demonstrate now, I'm going to log on to a particular server, and then we will create an email address, and we will use it for the test we want to do. Or simply, we can take Outlook as an example. Anytime you have your computer and you want to use Outlook, Outlook is called an email client that resides on your computer. And Outlook doesn't have your emails originally. Once you get your Outlook, you have to do some configurations before your Outlook can start sending emails. All right. And so anytime you want to connect to an email server, there are some details you need to provide to be able to connect an email client like Outlook to an email server. And if you have connected Outlook before, you know how the process is. All right, so let me just switch to this library, and I will show you the details and how we can go about this. And if we need to log on to the server, we will just do that and see how the email is set up on the server. All right. So this particular library here, it is called the SMTP lib. And this library is a built-in Python library. So interestingly, it is built into Python for connecting to an SMTP server and sending emails. Already, I've explained that anytime you want to send an email, it needs to go through a server, and SMTP is involved in sending the email because SMTP is a protocol that is used for sending the particular email. And so with this particular library, it is free to use in Python. You don't have to install anything. To use it, you just have to import it and use it. It is part of Python standard library. And so we can easily, yes, we can easily use it in Python. All we have to do is to just import it. So the example project we are going to be working on is that we are going to send a simple email using SMTP lib. And the first thing to do is just to import it as simple as it is. And number two, you need to have your credentials. So over here, I'm going to show you some credentials I have set up already. So these are real credentials that we are going to be using. And these credentials here, maybe they may appear new to you, but when I mentioned that SMTP is used to connect to servers, what I tried to tell you was that to connect your SMTP, there are real credentials that you need. Anytime you are working with any server at all and you want to send an email to any other server at all, you need to have your SMTP configured to do that. Let me explain it this way. If you are using a webmail client to send an email, for example, you are sending the mail from your Gmail is operating through a browser and it is using the Gmail application. And so that Gmail application from Gmail is already configured to receive mails and to send mails. That is very easy. But if you want to use something like Outlook, Outlook is not pre-configured. You know, Outlook is a software you install. There are some servers, when you are connecting your Outlook to them, a lot of tasks have been abstracted away from you. So you may just be asked to provide your email address and password, and Outlook will try to do the configurations on your behalf. However, most of the time, you have to do the configuration yourself. So let me open to Outlook and let's see. All right. So anytime you want to use Outlook, you see, you can type your email address here and you can just click on continue. If your email is coming from Gmail or Yahoo or Microsoft Cloud or Outlook, it can choose to set it up for you. So all you provide will be email and password. But if you have an email, like, let me see something like this. You see, to try certain things up for you. But most of the time, you have to, okay, my screen is not showing. All right. Okay, fine. Okay, so over here, when I open to Outlook, okay, Outlook asks me to enter my email address. And when you open to your Outlook, you'll see it. Now, if your email is from Gmail, Yahoo, iCloud, or from Microsoft, it can do the settings for you automatically. So when I clicked on next, it said, I saw something that said setting up your email. Okay, so they were trying to do the setup for you. However, if you have a private server, then you have to use one of these protocols, IMAP or POP3. So let's say you want to choose IMAP. When you choose IMAP, what that means is that you are trying to do your own configuration. And so IMAP will ask you to provide the incoming server over here. And then it will also ask you to provide the port number. Okay. Then your security type you want to use. And then what do you see here? Please tell me what you see here. Okay. Tell me what you see here. All right. So you see SMTP configuration. Okay. So this SMTP configuration, let's start from here. It is asking you for the outgoing server. So you put the outgoing server address here. You put a port number 587. You select security. And finally, you provide a username, which is an email address and password. What I'm showing you right now are the email server configurations that every server needs to be able to send an email, or every email client needs to be able to send and receive emails. Anytime you are not asked to provide the outgoing server and the port number, the incoming server and the port number, anytime you are not asked to do that, it means it is being done for you automatically. All right, that is what it means. It means it is being done for you automatically. And so let me open to something like Gmail, incoming, and outgoing server settings. All right, I'm just showing you this here. Over here, you can see that even Gmail has an IMAP server address. They have port number for incoming server. They use authentication or security. They also have SMTP. They have port number. They have authentication. And of course, your Gmail address and your password. All right, let me put it this way to conclude the point I'm trying to make. Every email server in the world needs this information to be able to send and receive mails, period. If you use an email service, what you don't see is that these settings have been inputted for you automatically. If you are running your own server, you need to go to your server and ask your server where you can find these details. Without these details, you cannot connect your server to a different service to handle email sending and receiving. So let me actually log on to a particular server and we will see where we can find these settings quickly, and then we will move on to the code to make things very easy. So I'm going to log on to a server now. All right. So if you get access to a server through cPanel, you can see all of these over here. And on this particular server, there is a section here for handling emails. So if you go to email accounts, over here, you can create emails on this particular server. So what I want to do right now is to create a simple mail right now. So let's go to create, and I'm going to, just a sec, let me see. Okay. All right, so this will just make the tech behind email sending very simple. So over here, I've selected one subdomain. You can choose any domain at all. And if there is only one domain on your server, that is what you use. So let's assume this is, let's say, retailafrica.com. You can just choose retailafrica.com. But this is a subdomain I created called contact.retailafrica.com. Now, over here, let's create an email called automation. So this is an email I'm creating, and you can see that the domain I selected is what is over here. So you can see contact.retailafrica.com here. That is what is giving us a @ So the ID I'll put here will be joined to this to create the email. Let's set a password here by generating a password like this. So let me copy this, all right? And then we go ahead and create. So now this has been created, and it is over here, automation@contact.retailafrica.com. Let me click on check mail. And you can see that I'm checking this mail over the web. Let's skip this. I'm checking this mail over the web. And so it is going to open to a webmail client, okay? Once you take the webmaster course, you understand this. Now, I want one person to send an email, or anyone who has access to send an email to this email address right now. And let's see if the server is receiving mails. Okay, let's see if the server is receiving mails. automation@contact.retailafrica.com. So please send an email to this right now. Let's see if the server is receiving mail. And if anybody does it, please tell me if you've done it. At least if I get one, we will be able to confirm if the server is receiving mail. So just send an email right now. Anybody can do that. Mostly when I ask people to do this, by the time you check, more than 5 people have sent mails, and it is so nice that way. So just let me know if you've sent an email to this address. We just created this for testing. And if you've done it, Let me know quickly. Okay. All right. So one person has done it. So over here, we are going to use a service called Roundcube to check our mail. So we'll click on open and we will see the mail. All right. So when we come to inbox, we are in the inbox right now. Let me click on refresh. Refresh and okay, so I've seen one test mail from Ixen. All right, so Ixen just sent this mail, okay? So when I open here, I'll see just to confirm if it's working. Ixen, is that what you sent? Okay, of course, that's what you sent. So fine, at least we have one mail. We have one mail. Now, this is a private server. This is not a Gmail server. This is not a Yahoo server. This is not Microsoft 365. This is not Google Workspace. And so if you want to use this server for any project, you need to configure the SMTP yourself. So first question, where do we get the details to configure? You can see that there's one email here that says client configuration. When you click on this mail, it is going to give you the settings you need over here. So you can see that it is giving you secure settings. And so you have an incoming server, you have the port numbers, you have your outgoing server, you have the port numbers, you have the SMTP, and you have another one here, which is giving you your username and your password. You know your password. And they are giving you another one here that you can use, and this as well. So what this means is that there are always configurations that are done before emails are sent. So let me switch back to the code and I will show you how the code is working. Now, if we want to connect this particular server to Outlook, we have to provide those details and Outlook will accept them. All right. All right. The outgoing server that we saw that had the SMTP address and the port number, this particular server we are using, this is the incoming server name, and this is the port number, and this is the email address, and this is the password. So these are the credentials we will use. And so if you import SMTP lib, you need to be ready to provide the SMTP credentials. So for the new email that we created, the credentials are what I just showed you, where you saw the port numbers and the incoming server, outgoing server. Now this SMTP lib, it needs these 4 details. So where can I get these 4 details? Let me go back to the email that we created. So over here, the first one is your SMTP server. In here, your SMTP server, you know that it is this because the outgoing server is the SMTP. You can see clearly here that SMTP port. So this is the SMTP server address, and this is the port number. Now, SMTP can use 2 ports depending on the security you want to implement. You can use 465 or 587. And so back to the Python code, you are going to see that we are using 587 because of the security we will use. And of course, the email address you created and the password you created. So in order not to lengthen anything, I'll just maintain this. It's the same email I created, just like what I did now, and the password. And this here is another incoming server we can use in place of what we just saw. So these are the details you provide to your code. Next, you need to call the SMTP lib. And over here, we've created a variable called server. And we'll say SMTP lib dot SMTP. And then over here, you provide two of the credentials. We have this SMTP server, which we have up here. And then the port number, which we have here. So the code you see here, they are just variables that are storing these credentials. And when it comes to professional Python scripting for applications where there are real credentials to be used, we don't expose credentials like this. Right now, we are learning in stages. That is why I'm exposing the credentials. So the credentials you are seeing here, they are real and they are correct. Just like the email I just created, I have the password in memory. I can use that email here. Okay. As a matter of fact, let me just use it. So the email we created was called automation@contact.retailafrica.com. And the password we created, let me paste it here. That's it. So with these details, these are the real credentials that exist on the server. So what I'm telling you right now is that if you are working on an enterprise application, an application that will go into production, you don't expose your credentials like this. We don't type passwords in our Python code directly. And I'm sure someone knows a library we use to hide sensitive information. Who can tell me the name of that library? I'm sure someone knows it. I'm sure about 5 people know it already because we've talked about it before, because some people already have used it before. So there is a library that is used to hide sensitive details. So when you are building a Python application that has sensitive details like credentials, login credentials, you don't type the password in your code. Thank you, Robly. So it's called .env. So please type .env in the chat for me, same as Robly. .env. So .env is a library that when you are working on a serious Python project, you have to import it or install it and import it. Then you will use it to store your credentials. All right, you use it to store your credentials so that your credentials will not be exposed in your code. So later, we will definitely come across .env and we will use it, but just keep it in mind. All right, so let's see how SMTP lib works. You see, after you understand the technical part, or you see how the technical part is, the rest becomes easy. Here, you call SMTP lib.smtp function, then you provide two of the credentials, the server and the port number. So you need to have an idea of what the server means. It's an outgoing server address. So this is an alternative we can use, and the port number. Then you can say start TLS. So if you use TLS, the port number is 587. If you use SSL, the port number is 465. So when it comes to email servers, SMTP works with these two port numbers based on the security you want to use, whether start TLS or you want to use SSL. All right. Then you also call this one, that's a server.login. Under server.login, you now provide the SMTP user and the password. And the user, you can see that is a username and the password is the password. So after providing this, you have provided the credentials and the information that SMTP lib needs to be able to handle your email sending. So these are the technical parts of this particular library. and it is very straightforward if you have a foundation in SMTP. Over here, the credentials part, they are just variables, okay? There's nothing technical about this part. They are just variables storing the details we will need. This is the only set of code that are required for you to continue using your SMTP lib. So after importing it, these are the 3 lines you concentrate on, because over here, what you see here, they are just the variables we created here that we are inputting here as arguments for it to connect to the server. So once the connection is established, that's all. SMTP lib can start sending your mails. So I'm going to go to PyCharm, and then we'll write our first script to send our mail. And after that is done, I will let you build upon it. I'll let you build upon it by adding some creativity to it so that it can insert the names and the emails as well. So let me close these projects and let's create another one here, another file. Let's call this email automation.py. Don't forget the .py. And okay, so we want to use SMTP lib to send an email. What is the first line of code? Who can tell me the first line of code? Where we've gotten to, we will be there soon. We are almost there. All right, so the first line of code is to import it. So we just import SMTP lib. Done. It's so interesting, you don't even have to install it. It's done. Now, either you import .env. I don't think if now the .env, to import it, we will import it from another variable. So you let me leave that. We are not going to use it. I was just going to say that you need to import .env if you will be storing your credentials separately, but that is for another time. All right. So now that we are here, we need to store our credentials. So we'll just store it here for now. So let me just write this. And to store our credentials, we need to store the SMTP server, because SMTP lib will request for the name of the server, or the server address will request for the server address. So because it will request for the server address, what we are going to do is to store it somewhere for later use. So this is a server address. Then it will also request for the port number, and I'm sure you know the port number. So who can tell me the SMTP port number? I'm sure you remember. Anybody in the chat? Tell me the port number. Okay. All right. Thank you, Bernardine. You are so smart. All right. You see, so again, what we are putting here are just variables. Okay. Now we can say email address. In the other code, we called it SMTP user. All right. SMTP user. And we called our email automation at contact.ritterafrica.com. That's how we called it. And then we have the SMTP password, or the user password. So these are just variables. Someone is asking, why are you naming your variables in uppercase if they are Python variables? I don't know if anybody can get an answer to that question. Why are we using uppercase to name our variables? Anybody? Because we were taught that we should always use lowercase. to be Pythonic, but this time we are using uppercase. All right. So who can tell us why? Okay, so I'm waiting for that. If someone puts it, then we talk about it. But next, we are going to go ahead and establish the SMTP connection. So let's establish SMTP connection. And to do that, we need to create a variable. Let's call the variable server and call our SMTP lib.smtp. Okay, SMTP lib.smtp. Once we do this, we can call the server. So we can say SMTP server, comma, then the port number, SMTP port. Okay, Robly says for constant. Thank you, Nyapandi, for constants. All right. So if a variable is supposed to be a constant, you can name it in uppercase. All right. And most of the time, when they are also credentials, we treat them as constants. And so we name them in uppercase. All right. So this is just a convention in Python. So anytime you see someone using uppercase, it means that variable is a constant, and it's possible that it is also containing credentials as well. All right. So what we are going to do now is to start the security on the server. So we are going to say server.start TLS. And when we are done sending the email, what we will do is to close the connection. So we are opening a connection. When we are done, we will close it. Okay, so this is just the technical part of this. And after that, you see how fun it is. So server.login now, and we need to log in with a username and password. So SMTP user, comma, SMTP password. This is how we log in. And this is how we establish connection to the server. All right. So now we want to send the email. Send the email. Now to send the email, I'm going to do something here. Before we establish the connection, I can create a variable called recipients like this, and I can store the recipient here. So whoever wants to receive an email, you can give me your email address and I can put you as a recipient so that we test the code to see if SMTP-lib can take these credentials, log on to the server, and send an email right from our Python code. So if you want me to send you an email, please put your email address in the chat. So we have Franklin Crane at gmail.com. All right. We have more people here. We have Musimbi Francis at Musibi Francis 5 at gmail.com. We have Dentor Israel at gmail.com. We have Senior Man Olajide Adebayo, Senior Man at gmail.com. We have Asari Kwejo, wow, at gmail.com. And let me add these last two. Robly.ochieng@gmail.com. And Bernardine, I didn't see your email address. You don't want to receive an email. Akinloye adeniyipatrick@gmail.com. All right. So what I've seen myself do is I wanted to provide just one email, and I've seen myself providing a lot of emails. So what can we do? We can turn this into a list. We can turn this into a list and call this recipients so that Python can pick them one by one and send it. So because we have a list here, what that means is that we are going to create a loop so that it will pick the addresses one by one and send it to them one by one. All right. When I'm done, I'm going to share this code so that you can build upon it. All right. Now, to continue, I'm going to introduce one simple module. I'm going to introduce one simple module to you that will help format the emails. That will help format the email. What this means is that it will make the message appear either in plain text or in HTML. It's just going to format the mail, okay? So I'm going to introduce one module that will just help the arrangement of the email. So I'm going to add it to the code and we'll be done very soon. So let me just import that. We call it MIME text. MIME text. And it helps in formatting the email body so that it can be properly read by the email client. Okay, so I'm going to introduce it to you. Then we will add it to our code and continue from there. All right. So now let me reshare my, because I want to send a mail, I'm going to write a comment here. And before reading this comment, this is what I have imported. This is called MIME text like this. I'm going to highlight it, and if you have good eyes, you can see, please type it in the chat for me, and I'll tell you what it does. MIME text. MIME text. And I wrote from email.mime.text import MIME text. Thank you. Thank you. So this MIME text, let's read what it does. It helps in formatting the email body so that it can be properly interpreted by the email client. So for the email to be readable, we use this MIME text to help make the email readable. All right, so I've just imported the MIME text. And next, I'm going to create the email content. I'm going to create the email content. So let's come here and let's create the email content. So we'll create a subject and say that welcome to automation with Python. That's a subject. After the subject, we'll create a body of the message and we will say that this is an email sent by a Python script. Welcome to the world of automation with Python. All right. So this is a body. Okay. So to send this email, I've created a subject, I've created a body. Next, I'm going to create a loop so that we can loop through all the recipients. All right. So let's create a loop to send the email to individual recipients. All right, so we can use for loop and say for recipients in recipients. All right, so we created this sequence here called recipients. It's a list. So for each one of them, we will now create a variable. And watch what I'm going to do here. I'm going to create a variable called MSG. And I'm going to call my MIME text and put the body of the message in the MIME text. So this is a body, and we imported this MIME text, and I'm putting the body in the MIME text. Again, we said the MIME text will make the text or the body readable. So it makes a lot of sense to put the body in the MIME text because this message is going into an email client. So to make it more readable, this MIME text will help in its formatting. All right, so now that we have the body, we are going to create the subject. Let me just write this MSG, and we will target the subject of MSG in quotes like this, sorry. And we will assign this to the subject variable we have. All right, so once I'm done with this script, we can just go ahead and use it. Then MSG also has an index called from, and here we can send this using our SMTP user. So SMTP user here is our email address, and then MSG also has two. MSG has two, and we will send this to, of course, this recipient over here. So whoever will be selected here will receive this. All right, so now we are ready to send the email, and I'm just going to create a simple, I'm just going to create a simple script here that will push the email. And this simple script, let me type it one by one so that you see how it will be pushed. So we will come here and say server.send mail. So server.send mail, it is requesting for the from address. So if you see here, it's requesting for the from address. So the from address will definitely be SMTP user. Then comma, it is now requesting for the to address. The to address is definitely the recipient who should receive the email. And let me put it in curly braces so that it formats it well. And lastly, we have to send a message, MSG dot as string. All right, so this is the line of text that will push the message. That will push the message. After this, I'm going to print an F string and say that the email sent successfully to recipient. All right. So if everything is right, this should go ahead and send the mails. When we are done with everything, we need to close the connection. So close the connection. Will be server.quit. All right. Right now, we have a script that can send an email. So things like this, you don't really have to memorize. You just need to know what it does really well, know what to change. So if you have a server, you plug in your server details here, and then you control the message, you control the from, and then you go ahead and you start sending. So I'm going to add my email address here. I'm going to add my email address here. Which email should I even use? All right. So what I'm going to do is that once I push it, we will find out if it worked. If not, we check what didn't work. Then we go ahead and fix it. So if everything is right, let's see if this will go and if we will receive any message. All right. So we can see that it is delivering. So if you see your email address here, please check your mail. And if we did the right thing, we should receive an email. You should receive an email in your mailbox. So I want to see any of the mails. Oh, wow. Let's put our hands together for Francis. Francis has received. Yes. Well done. Francis has received. Who else? Oh, wow. Wow. Franklin too has received. Okay. Robley too has received. All right. That's powerful. Olajide too has received. So this proves that our code, wow, Israel has even shared it. Okay. This is an email sent by a Python script. Welcome to the world of automation with Python. You see? All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So you can see clearly that we created an email together. The email we are using, we created it. And I did that for you to understand the process behind it and the tech behind it. And then we had a password. Okay. So this email here, we actually created this email on the server. We set up this password. We found the server's incoming address, sorry, outgoing server address. If you don't have the outgoing server address, it will not work. If you don't put it through a secure port number, it won't work. If you don't provide a real or a correct email address that will be sent from, it will not work. And if you don't give the password to the email to the script, it will not work. So this SMTP lib, we have seen that it works just as a normal SMTP server. This library here is contacting a real web server, a real email server, providing the credentials, asking permission, and sending the real email from server to server. I know that if you are very, very new to these things, you may not understand why we need all this, but I explained to you that in the whole wide world, for any email to be sent, it is from server to server communication, and the protocol that does that is called the Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, or SMTP. And we've covered this extensively in our Webmaster course. If you take the Webmaster course, you will understand this really, really well. There was no time today. I just had to brush through the basics for you to get it. So if you ever want to use Python to automate email sending, this is the code. I'm sure everyone understands how we got this code. What is left is for you to improve upon the code. Here, instead of just sending it to individuals, I want you to create a Python dictionary that will have the name and the email, so that in the body, you can say, welcome, Olajide, or hi, Olajide. This is an email sent by my Python script. Then add your message. If you want to do a line break, you know that you can use the new line character to create a line break in your message. Okay. Sorry. Yes, this one. You can use a new line character to break lines in your message. So if you want to break lines so that you have multiple lines, you can do that. All right. Over here, instead of asking the server to send this, you can do error handling here and do try and accept over here, so that in case there's a failure, it will not crash the application, but it can produce a friendly response. If you've done error handling, you can implement that over here. All right. So I want you to be creative. I want you to be creative and work on this code. Work on this code. So like I said, I wanted you to do two things, but let's take it one for now. I wanted you to include a schedule so that it will be sent on a particular day and time, but let's remove that for now. I want you to create a dictionary here instead of a list, and find a way to input the name of the recipient in the message, and make sure that the message is sent to the recipient as well. So instead of just sending to an email address, personalize the message, and you will learn a lot from it, and to help you explore this code. So what I'm going to do is to share this code with you, and you will build upon it as your assignment. So I'm going to upload this to Google Drive as usual and share it with you. Okay. After doing this assignment, you are going to be really excited of the result. It's going to amaze you how you can send multiple mails. Already, we've been able to send multiple mails, but to personalize it. Yes, so let me share with you. I've uploaded it, and I want you to be creative with it. I want you to be creative with it. So I did that, and it was so interesting. It was so interesting. So I'm putting the link in the chat right now. I'm putting the link in the chat. So this is your assignment. Work on it, and you are going to enjoy this particular script, at least now that you are familiar with how the code was generated. So I believe every part of this code makes sense to you. I believe you understand how we got this code, every part of this code, how we got it, and I think it is quite clear. We created this loop here because we have multiple recipients and we wanted to loop through their emails and send it to them. All right. So you are still going to create a loop, but instead of looping a list, you are going to loop through a dictionary. And instead of just one email like this, you are going to have the name of the person and the email, the second person to the name and the email. So a dictionary can do that. And then when you are sending, make sure that you hide the person. You can say hi, and you can call the name. Then you can break the line. Then you add your message. It can be any message at all. So I really want to see your code, and I'll test it to see if it is working. This is a good example, and it will help you really understand what we've done and prepare you for advanced work later on. Is it not amazing that your Python code has sent an email? I think that alone should be exciting, that your Python code has sent an email. I think that is interesting. That is interesting already. So do this and you'll find this automation to be so much fun and you will learn a lot from it. All right, so please download the code right now because as we end the lesson, as we end it, you will not have access to the code again. So I've shared it. Click on it. At least let me see if one person has clicked on it and has downloaded it. Then I'm sure all of you have done it. So if you have it, let me know. And please, this is a very important assignment. Work on it, work on it, work on it, work on it, work on it. It's important. Don't think about all that we went through to get here. I was just explaining the tech behind it to you. Yes, but it is so interesting and it's going to lead to other interesting things later on. So this is where we wrap up our lesson on automation. In our subsequent Python lessons, we are going to treat other important topics in Python. And the more familiar you are with Python, the more you'll be able to do a lot with Python. Python is so powerful and every one of us needs to master. You don't learn Python by watching someone do anything with Python. You learn it when you write the code. So please do this assignment, all right? And I'll be happy if you don't copy and paste the code, but look on the code and type it. I want you to type the code. Type it line by line till you get the whole thing. Don't copy and paste. After you have the whole code and you test it, then you add your modification, and I've explained your modification to it, to you. So thank you all. If you want to be creative with it, be creative and send your work to assignment@retailafrica.org and let's see the wonderful thing you will do with this lesson. I believe you've learned something in this and you'll always keep on learning until your Python is perfect. Thank you once again. This is where we end the lesson and I'll see you in the next class. I wish you all the best. Bye-bye.